So when I started my kind of professional working career outside of martial arts, I was 27 and I had master's degree in international management, but I had to start with entry-level positions. But it took me less than 18 months and I was already a country manager, a leading team of 30 people.
And the book certainly is one that you don't just read and forget about. It is one that stays with you, especially if you're a working professional who has to deal with a lot of people coming from various walks of life. It can be a real lifesaver. But on that note, my question is, the people who might not even be working professionals, when they are picking up this book, what lessons do you think they can learn even for the personal spaces of their life, for the personal domain of their life, maybe their relationships or their own psychology or any other domain that you feel might be relevant? Are there any other preconceived notions around this activity of martial arts that you would like to break over here? Some myths that you would like to bust for all our viewers over here?
Well, that's very kind of smartly thought there and we observed as well. So one is that people tend to think that we are kind of very violent and tough, whereas we are very vulnerable. Because in every training, you actually lose constantly. There's like I said, if you try to do 100 push-ups, so today you might do 10 or 15 or something, but you need to strive for that. So we're very humble and vulnerable in that and kind of open for feedback and comments. And people may be perceiving martial arts fighters very tough. There are, of course, people who are tough. I'm not saying that, but it doesn't come from martial arts training. It comes from their personality. The other one is that we are very observant and we are watching like how people feel and what are their emotions. So the fights are not won with physical strength. It's more about strategy and then also like kind of capitalizing the opportunity when the opponent is at their weakest point.
So welcome everyone. We are very delighted to have you over here. And more than that, we are delighted to have a very inspiring personality with us here, who is Aslak De Silva. He is an author. He is an expert in leadership. He is a coach and also a wellness mentor. Now, before I start with my questions, I would really love, and our audience members would love it as well, to learn a bit about your journey and your experiences so far from your own self. So we would be honored to hear a bit from you about the same.
Thanks, Yash, for having me here. So yeah, I'm half Sri Lankan, half Finnish. I'm born and raised in Finland, but I started to train martial arts when I was 12. And then I was really active. I have about 100 full contact fights. I won the world championship in full contact fighting in Detroit, Michigan in the year 2000. And then at the age 27, then when I kind of had injured my hand a couple of times, and the doctor said that maybe you should focus on a professional career. And I started to work in entry-level positions and built my career to be a now two-time CEO in multinational companies. I have 5 board of directors positions and then kind of became very interested in leadership journey. And then in the end, I noticed a lot of parallels between martial arts training or the principles and leadership. And then now this year I wrote a book, the Black Belt in Leadership, and then had there 20 lessons from martial arts to the boardroom. And now it became the bestseller in the US. And then I have my own podcast and I then do coaching or executive coaching and training for companies as well.
That is so wonderful. It is such a joy to have this conversation with you right now. And I'm sure that I will get to learn a lot from your answers as well, such as our audience members definitely are also very excited to learn from your insights. Now, before we go with the questions about the book itself and your professional experiences, you mentioned that your journey started with Black Belt in martial arts itself. You started in a space that was all about physical action, that was all about discipline, that was all about being rigorous with your approach physically. How did all of that start? What was it which inspired you even when you were a kid maybe, or when you were much younger, to explore this field at a young age? Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So, as a youngster, you might get into fights. So I know sometimes they were not serious, and sometimes they're more serious. So when I was growing up, so we just fought with friends, and then there was a martial arts club coming to our town, and then my friend said that maybe that's something for me, since I was always intrigued by kind of also Asian philosophies from Far East Asia and Sri Lankan as well. So kind of like I had that perspective. And then when you went to the martial arts gym, so you noticed that, hey, you know nothing. You start with the white belt. But then I was interested in kind of had a vision that what if I someday got a black belt? So how would I feel? And then just to have to go there training every day, continue that for year after year, and then you kind of it just became your philosophy of life. So you understood that okay, this is how I train myself physically, but at the same time, there's a quite good mental training as well because there in when you fight, so you have to push yourself to the limits, and you have lots of insecurities. You don't know your opponent. You might feel stressed about it. You might feel that, hey, I might not win the fight, but you still have to overcome those moments and just go there and try your best. So I was very captivated by that, so kind of like challenging myself, learning new stuff, and becoming a better version of myself. And I think also like in Western countries, when we have a lot of stress here by working and everything. So I found a kind of a good balance there as well, so that I learned how to control my stress away from my mind, and then kind of learned to how to deal with my insecurities. So then kind of came to my life philosophy, even if I'm not training martial arts the same way as I used to when I was a child.
That is a very interesting answer, I must say, because this is exactly what I want to ask a follow up question on.
Mm,
Because you mentioned that you started in this field of physical action, of martial arts at a young age. But then, because of certain injuries, as you also mentioned in your introduction, you had to step away from that field. You had to enter a
mm,
whole new phase of your life. What are the specific lessons or even motivations from the field of martial arts that helped you in sort of just staying above the water? Not feel like
mm,
you are drowning because you are basically entering a new phase of life, but stay afloat and feel motivated about what lies ahead as well. Would you like to
mm.
comment on that?
Yeah, thanks. Yes, that's a really good question, actually. So when you start martial arts, so let's say you have to do 10 push-ups and you manage to do seven, but you just know that if you just continue to do and try every day, so someday you'll be able to do that 10 push-ups. There's a way to move forward. So when kind of had to start at the entry level positions and I was working in telesales, so I noticed the same, that you're not, when you start, you're not great, but as long as you kind of try your best, and then you kind of have more of a feeling that where am I now today, what level, what can I do, but then you have a path forward. You kind of understand that by doing that, so every day showing up to work, trying your best, you'll get better. And that's probably the biggest learning that I got from martial arts, is that regardless of where you are today, there you can be better tomorrow, and it just
Mm,
requires discipline, and you have to just show up and do what's required. And tomorrow you might not be better, but maybe in a month or maybe in a year. And as long as you just trust the path, which is then often referred as Do in martial arts, someday you'll be there. And that kind of brings you confidence just to try out, even if you're not succeeding today, and just to kind of learn from your masters, learn from your teachers, learn from your peers, because they have probably overcome the obstacles that you are having at the moment. So that's the martial arts way. So that's why I'm not stressed about success. I'm more stressed about the kind of that, can I just show up and try again? So as
mm.
long as you can have that chance to try again, so you know that you'll be better if you are just willing to learn.
That's such a beautiful answer because having the will to move forward, even when you do not see any pathway as such in the sight, that matters a lot. And especially for the youngsters of today, you mentioned that you had to basically change the trajectory of your life at a young age because of certain injury. Now, even when that might not be the case for majority of youngsters, most of them after their studies, after their academics, do feel lost. They feel
Mhm.
like there is no specific direction that they want to take, or they can take, or they should take. Now, you are a coach for people who have a working experience of 20, 30, 40, even 50 years. And we really, look up to you for the same. But what about the youngsters out there, the ones who are
Yeah.
just starting out, who don't even have a professional experience as such? What insight would you like to share with them about the message of having a black belt, not even in leadership, but
Mm.
success in life or just moving forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks for asking. I think we all have strengths and weaknesses, and often when we start, especially the first job, so we only see our weaknesses. So we are too worried about those moments when we fail or don't succeed, and we have high expectations for ourselves as well. But those are the moments when we should look in the mirror and just ask ourselves, okay, but what are my strengths as well? What am I good at? and just bring your personality, bring your best version of yourself, and just understand that you always start with the white belt. Even if you're an expert and changing jobs, you still start as a white belt, but it can be quicker. The learning curve can be quicker. And it's more about just learning to work in that environment rather than becoming something that you're not skilled at all. And I often talk about people that there are two ways to kind of win a fight as well. That it's about your strengths or not falling into your weaknesses. And both are
Mm,
equally fine, but often people are more worried about the weaknesses than the strengths. So I'm sure that anybody who has graduated from school or even just starting their job, so they have something, whether it's discipline, where it's they're kind of they are very hardworking, or their mindset is very optimistic, or they just know something. They have been working, playing around with AI or anything. Those are your strengths, and start with those, and remember that all of us have kind of our individual learning curves. We shouldn't
mm,
compare too much what the others are doing, but at the same time, we can learn from the others. And the quicker you are learning and willing to ask questions, so then more input you get from others, and suddenly you notice that I'm actually very skilled and I can manage. So when I started my kind of professional working career outside of martial arts, I was 27 and I had master's degree in international management, but I had to start with entry level positions. It took me less than 18 months and I was already a country manager, a leading team of 30 people. So even if in the start, the first day I entered the job, I was in the kind of bottom of the hierarchy, but because I learned to do the job, so then my studies helped me to become a leader. So again, the strengths played out in my favor in the end, even if it in the beginning didn't feel like it. And I was kind of almost lost my self confidence to start and thinking that, hey, how can I at the age 27 be on the bottom of the hierarchy? I thought that it would be an easy way to shift, but a couple of weeks working, just coming and showing up, and things started to get better.
that's great. And I'm sure that the concept of black belt in leadership must have played a huge role in that as well. So, talking about the same, can you explain a bit to us? What is this concept, this theory, this mindset all about?
Yeah, so there I draw parallels between martial arts. So there are lots of things, anything from kind of discipline that martial arts are probably known as discipline. You train every day, you are very humble in your training. So you want to be better, but you also understand that there's always somebody who's better than you. Then we talk about a lot about this kind of mindset of being able to rest and then use your energy when the time is right. When many times when we talk about work like life balance, so we don't talk about the small moments. So as a fighter, so when you have 3 minute rounds and then you have 1 minute break, so during that break you become a different person when you go back. So all these kind of principles from the martial arts then put in the leadership perspective. Also, one thing that many people, when they think of martial artists, they might consider them to be violent, which is just the opposite. We are very calm, we are very gentle to others, we are humble people and value everybody because we understand that all of us have had to go through rigorous training and we all have our weaknesses as well. So we value everybody, and so that's why it kind of goes into this emotional intelligence where we read the emotions of the room and the people and are very composed ourselves as well, that we are not getting angry and in a certain time we can stay calm in stressful situations. So the book is about teaching these lessons and helping other leaders, maybe even without martial arts background, to understand how you can train yourself to be a leader who can endure a lot of stress, be a good leader, value people that you work with, and then grow to become better every day.
That's so wonderfully said. And the book certainly is one that you don't just read and forget about. It is one that stays with you, especially if you're a working professional who has to deal with a lot of people coming from various walks of life. It can be a real lifesaver. But on that note, my question is the people who might not even be working professionals, when they are picking up this book, what lessons do you think they can learn even for the personal spaces of their life, for the
Mhm.
personal domain of their life, maybe their relationships or their own psychology or any other domain that you feel might be relevant?
Yeah, so of course, I mean, it's written in ways that it's a lot of about my personal experiences, and there are a lot of mistakes that I've done as well. So I'm openly sharing, and so that people can read about those as well and understand that, hey, I hope that it brings a smile. And the readers are thinking, why were you that stupid in that moment? But that's also life's lessons and how you learn about those. So I hope that it opens up people's eyes to understand that this is still life, and you don't need to be perfect. but maybe more worried about progression and understanding and learning around you on every possible things. I'm even explaining there when my daughter, who was at that time 10 years old, was coaching me on webinars how to be in front of camera. So a great teacher for me. Of course, she was very savvy with social media and been watching that, so she could actually comment on those. Or sometimes you have a master who's very has been training for tens of years and is teaching you something. So I hope that it opens up people's life, regardless of where you are in a professional life, to understand that, hey, you can learn from anybody anywhere and become a better version of yourself. And also maybe see the path for the future, that even if today you're stuck with something or you don't know who you're going to become, there's a way forward. And whatever you do today will actually have an impact for you into tomorrow, which then, even if I said that nobody's perfect, but the mistakes, or if you mistreat people today, it will have an impact how people will treat you in the future. So just being aware of those as well, that, hey, be a good person today and good things will come to you in due time.
That is such a beautiful thing to say. And I'm sure that even the people who might not be working professional, such as youngsters who might still be studying or might be still in college, they are also getting to learn a lot from the insights that you are sharing. And the ones who already are in leadership positions, I'm absolutely certain that they are finding this conversation very delightful. Now, on that note, as you mentioned, that this book has the potential, the power to open up the minds of all the readers out there. Just like martial arts, as you mentioned, helped you open your mind, open your psychology, open your opinion about how wide and how big the life can be. On that note, we have talked about the beautiful lessons that martial arts has taught you personally. What about some of the difficulties, some of the challenges? Because that was also a very crucial phase of your life. So when you were just starting out, especially in such a physical, such a rigorous field, what were some
Yeah.
of the initial challenges that you had to deal through and grow through, if I may call it that way?
Yeah, for sure. There's one story that I explain also in the book, was that when sometimes you are so afraid to face the opponent. And in my mind, I had made the opponent super strong, super big, and everything, that I would be beaten up. And I was almost afraid to move in the fight. And I lost the fight. But during the fight, I noticed that it wasn't that bad. It was
Mm.
all just in my head. And my friends were watching the fight. So when I lost the fight, so then I went to the locker room and started to cry, because I was so ashamed of me. I was so ashamed of my performance. But that taught me as well, like, okay, that sometimes you just play these things in your head which are not actually valid. And again, like, you should prepare your mind to try to be able to operate at your best level, rather than play it out for the future, that this is how it's going to go. Another one that I had when I injured first on my knee and it was operated, so I was kind of feeling I was super blocked, and even in thinking that, okay, everything in my life stops. So martial arts had been everything that I was focusing on, and then when I had my knee operated, so I thought I could not come back at that time at all. And then I felt like there's nothing in life that I want to do anymore, and I was very blocked, and I was studying at the same time. And then my wife told me that just go to school and just be there present, so that you get something for your mind as well. And in those moments, you kind of notice that, okay, sometimes even a small step forward can help you, even if it's just uh, taking you somewhere. And from that small step, you take another small step forward, and then someday everything will be clear. So there are lots of those moments when you're kind of working with your mind, when you're doubting yourself, doubting you about your future, feeling that this is not going anywhere. And those are then the moments when you should just, with martial arts or meditation or something, just kind of take yourself out of the equation and just coach yourself as you would coach others, and just kind of take steps forward and see where it goes. It might not be the right path, but it at least is a path. And then when you in martial arts, you talk a lot about that when you can have repetitions, you can learn to control yourself. And it can be even bad repetitions, but then you learn something and then you can change the direction. Sometimes it's very hard to take into this advice from others. We have plenty of great books out there. All of us leaders probably attend different courses, but when somebody tells us, it doesn't turn into a skill. Skill only comes when you try it out yourself, when you have experience and physically and kind of try them out, and then you can start controlling your actions. So this is a lot to do with martial arts, and that's what I'm coaching others and leaders as well, that don't just kind of acquire knowledge train it to be a skill so that you can become a better version that you can control and be deliberate in what you're doing rather than just knowing.
That's such a great point of view. I really appreciate it. Now, as a leadership coach, interacting with so many leaders around the globe and so many working professionals, what are some of the skill gaps that you notice are basically, there most often, especially when you're interacting even with those people who might have an experience, who might have a lot of, let's say, technical experience of having worked for so many years, and yet these skill gaps, they keep on reoccurring even with the
Right.
experienced ones. What are some of these areas that you can think of, especially as a leadership coach yourself?
Yeah. I think the hardest one, even for me, is then the communications, that what you're thinking. So will people understand what you're saying the same way? And the answer is never. They will never understand it the same way as you meant. So that's a lot about not only what you say, it's also like what kind of feelings you're giving to people and the feeling they have as well. So kind of reading the situation, reading the room, ensuring that everybody gets the communication and understands it. So the hard part is often that we think that when we say it out loud, so it has just been passed on, or if you send an email, so everybody reads it the same way. So I think that's number one for sure. And in a bigger perspective, then it becomes like that: can you build a psychological safe environment to work with, where everybody can feel confident about themselves, they can voice out their concerns, ask questions, and then if you can read the emotions of the room, so then you can pace it in a proper way for the team. So I think we are, at least in the Western countries, so we are kind of moving away from this kind of hierarchical, dictative leadership to more understanding, and we talk about even level leadership, that you are there to serve people and help them to succeed. So I think there's a big change here, and it can also, there are lots of generational gaps here as well. I know you're an expert in Gen Z and others, the kind of younger ones who are looking for not only for work to get money, but they want to feel that it's for them, and they want to kind of live a good life with work as well. So how to kind of have this kind of a workplace where they feel welcome and they want to join. So I think that's then the big gap that we have, especially with the older generations leaders that we have here.
That's really wonderfully said, because what you have mentioned in your answer, how the youngsters, especially, they don't just want to be led, they want to be involved. They want to be
Mhm.
welcomed in the fold. Do you think martial arts in any way conveys a message about that collaborative spirit of leadership, according to you?
Well, it does, because like martial arts is about you always have an opponent or training partner. So it's never about what you can do. It's always depending on the other.
Mhm.
So I remember there was a fight when I was fighting a Taekwondo champion, and he was taller than me, and he's very good in kicking. And kicking was my specialty, but it was his expertise. He was in the Olympic sport. So I could not use the same techniques as I was used to, because he was so much better in that. So I had to do something else. I had to adapt. So this is martial arts ways. Depends. The adaptability is there always. You prepare for different scenarios and different people, and depending on the opponent, so you are a different fighter yourself. And to me, the leadership is in the way the same way, that depending on who are you leading, you should be a kind of approach it differently, and be individually different for different people. Of course, when you're leading a big team, so there are certain things that you do the same for everybody, but then still understanding that we are all humans, we are all different, and how to make that happen for in a way that everybody's super happy to work for you and with you. That's the skill that you learn in martial arts, also in other team sports as well, where you kind of work together and try to help the team to succeed. So there are also other kind of crossovers that you can benefit. So you don't need to train martial arts for such, but whatever you train in martial arts is always about facing another human being. So that's why it's a very good training for leaders as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, one thing which I'm noticing from each one of your answers so far has been the case that my preconceived notion about what martial arts really is, which is a physical activity,
Mm.
simply that, is pretty wrong, because as we are uncovering more and more about this topic, we are noticing that it is far more about the psychology, the philosophy of being who you are, and basically walking towards what you want to become, success, as we call it. Are there any other preconceived notions around this activity of martial arts that you would like to break over here? Some myths that you would like to bust for all our viewers over here?
Well, that's very kind of smartly thought there, and we observed as well. So one is that people tend to think that we are kind of very violent and tough, whereas we are very vulnerable. Because in every training, you actually lose constantly. Or there's like I said, if you try to do 100 push-ups, so today you might do 10 or 15 or something, but you need to strive for that. So we're very humble and vulnerable in that, and kind of open for feedback and comments. And people may be perceiving martial arts fighters very tough. There are, of course, people who are tough. I'm not saying that, but it doesn't come from martial arts training. It comes from their personality. The other one is that we are very observant, and we are watching like how people feel and what are their emotions. So the fights are not won with physical strength. It's more about strategy, and then also like kind of capitalizing the opportunity when the opponent is at their weakest point. So we are used to kind of reading the room and the emotions, and when we look calm, so we are just observing what's happening. So again, people think that it comes from more from the aggression and attacking, but actually it's just the opposite. We're just seeing that when the moment is good, and then we are moving. So maybe that's another one that people tend to forget when they look at martial artists.
Wonderful. Now, if we spin the same question for leadership as well, because you are a leadership coach, what are some of the preconceived notions, some of the myths about what it means to be a leader that you would like to break for us over here?
Yeah, I mean, one is that I kind of encounter often is that leaders don't know everything. So I mean, people
Yeah.
perceive that they have all the right answers, and no, they're just used to making decisions. If you ask a leader that what should we do here, so they just have to do a decision. So that's what they're used to. They might not know the answer, and they might not even know where we are going for, but they are trying their best. So of course, and the same here, that leaders are always tough and they don't have emotions. They are individual and human beings as well. Often in leadership positions, they are very lonely. They have nobody to share with. They have nobody to complain about the situation. They have to just take them all in themselves and then lead from there. So, I mean, those are probably the things that people feel, that they are strong individuals who can handle every situation and know everything. So, but that's not true at all.
Great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Now, at the end of this conversation, what is the one single takeaway that you hope our readers, our listeners, our viewers would remember, especially from this entire conversation, about the fact that how martial arts or any activity in life can have a message for your leadership skills as well? What would you like to comment on?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Yash. I would say that, I mean, regardless who you are today, you'll be a better version of yourself tomorrow as long as you just take the path. And we all have weaknesses and strengths. So just see the other side that is hard for you to see. Some of us are focusing on our strengths, some of our weaknesses, but flip it around sometimes and just like see yourself from the other side. And that's the path for growth for the future.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much, Aslak. It was such a delight to interact with you. I got to learn a lot, and I'm sure that our viewers must have got to learn a lot as well. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, and hope you had a good time as well.
I did, Yash. Thank you. Very good questions. So thanks for those as well.
Thanks a lot.